Welcome, everyone. Today, we're jumping straight into a really breathtaking historical journey. We're not just looking at old maps and dates here. We're literally stepping right into the blazing heat of 16th century India to look at a figure whose very existence kind of challenges our understanding of human physics. We're talking about Maharana Pratap, the son of Mewar. This was a leader whose pride and, honestly, unyielding demand for sovereignty was just so massive that even the throne of Delhi seemed to pale in comparison. So in this historical analysis, we're going to break down the absolutely terrifying combat prowess and the staggering physical realities of a warrior who simply never viewed freedom as something you could negotiate.
Okay, 208 kilograms. That's over 458 pounds. And just to be clear, we're not talking about the weight of a cannon or a war horse here. That number is the actual documented weight of the battle gear that Maharana Pratap wore and carried into combat. Just think about that for a second. For most of us today, just trying to stand up with 208 kilograms strapped to our bodies, it'd be completely impossible. Our joints would just buckle. But as our source material shows, he didn't just stand there. He rode, he swung, he parried, and he fought through the rugged, scorching terrain of India, carrying all of that weight. It's a crazy historical reality that made him an absolute nightmare for his enemies.
Okay, let's dive into this, because you're probably wondering how on earth is that biologically possible, right? Well, 7 feet, 5 inches. Maharana Pratap had this towering physical stature of 7 feet, 5 inches. And honestly, this immense height, along with the massive muscular frame that comes with it, is exactly what made carrying such impossible weight an actual reality. He was, quite literally, a giant on the battlefield. When you take a 7-foot 5-inch frame and combine it with the kinetic momentum of a charging warhorse, you really start to understand the sheer, terrifying physics of just his presence alone.
So let's look at Section 1. The 208-kilogram legend and the physics of power. Now, what's really fascinating is the actual breakdown of all this gear. Like, what exactly made up this mind-boggling burden? Well, his primary spear all by itself weighed 80 kilograms. Just to put that into perspective for you, an Olympic barbell loaded up with heavy plates weighs less than this single weapon, and he was launching it with pinpoint precision. Throw in his heavy, impenetrable chest armor, 2 huge swords, and a really heavy battle shield. Look, just casually walking with all that would be agonizing, but maneuvering and fighting for hours in steep, rocky mountain passes, it completely defies our modern imagination. It was just an absolute masterclass in mass and momentum.
Moving right along to Section 2, Forged in the Aravallis.
You know, a warrior like this isn't just born, they are forged. His combat skills definitely weren't honed on nice, pristine marble palace floors. He actually spent his formative years out in the rugged, treacherous Aravalli hills. He lived right alongside the local Bhil community, who were these fiercely independent, highly skilled forest dwellers. They actually affectionately called him Kika. And it was out there, climbing steep ravines, surviving in the wild, that he built up this unparalleled stamina. He learned the art of mountain warfare directly from the Bhils. It was a rugged, lightning-fast style of combat that the heavily organized Mughal armies literally had zero answers for.
And this wasn't just about intense physical training either. It was about absolute, unyielding willpower. Maharana Pratap completely rejected the palace luxury that was supposed to be his birthright. Instead, he took this fierce, unbreakable oath. Until his homeland of Chittor was freed from Mughal control, he'd sleep on beds of rough grass and eat his meals off plates made of leaves. His colossal physical strength was deeply, inextricably rooted in this incredibly strict vow of austerity. The guy's mind was basically as hardened as that 80-kilogram steel spear he carried.
Which brings us to Section 3, the Battle of Haldighati.
And this brilliantly illustrates the terrifying reality he woke up to on the morning of June 18, 1576. Maharana Pratap's Rajput forces numbered just 20,000 soldiers. They were standing against a staggering 80,000 Mughal soldiers. That is a massive 4-to-1 disadvantage. He was facing this terrifying disparity in troop numbers right at a narrow, blazing hot, constrained mountain pass. So strategy, the terrain, and sheer individual combat power had to somehow make up for this overwhelming numerical gap.
It was right in this bottleneck of total chaos that his 208-kilogram armor and that towering 7'5" frame were put to the ultimate test. Spurring his famously loyal warhorse Chetak, Pratap charged directly into the thickest part of the enemy lines. He made a beeline straight for the Mughal commander, Man Singh, who was sitting way up high on a war elephant. With absolute precision and just unimaginable explosive power, Pratap launched that 80-kilogram spear.
The weapon flew through the air and literally pierced the elephant's mahout, the driver. It was a display of lethal accuracy and brute force that completely shocked the entire battlefield.
Now, let's look at Section 4, the Duer Strike.
You see, the Battle of Duer is etched into history for one very specific jaw-dropping moment. Facing the Mughal commander Bahul Khan, Maharana Pratap didn't just, win a sword fight. He delivered a single devastating sword strike with such unfathomable force that it cleaves the commander and the heavily armored warhorse he was riding entirely in two. One single strike. This swing of his massive sword proved once and for all that his raw resolve and physical dominance could drastically outmatch the modern mechanized warfare of the Mughals, who had cannons and guns. Flesh, bone, and steel just yielded to that one singular strike.
Finally, Section 5, the true meaning of sovereignty.
So the crucial point is really perfectly captured in one simple but heavy phrase. Pratap, you have won. And get this, these aren't the words of an ally or a friend. These are the words of his ultimate rival, the Mughal Emperor Akbar himself. Even with all the cannons, the massive armies, and the infinite wealth of an empire, Akbar ultimately had to concede to Pratap's unmatched valor and his unyielding demand for sovereignty. Honestly, it's the absolute ultimate testament when your greatest adversary has to acknowledge that your spirit simply cannot be broken.
On January 19, 1597, the sun of Mewar finally set. Maharana Pratap passed away. But, as our source material beautifully points out, the echoes of his armor and the clash of his swords remain completely immortal in the valleys of the Aravalis. The core lesson he left behind for all of us is that true jewelry isn't made of gold or diamonds, it's self-respect. He proved that a true king sacrifices luxury and risks absolutely everything to uphold the dignity and the freedom of his homeland.
Which brings us to the end of our historical analysis today. And I really want to leave you with a thought-provoking question here. Is such superhuman strength and absolute uncompromising resolve for sovereignty even possible in today's modern era? Just think about what it takes to carry that kind of physical and mental weight. I would absolutely love to hear your thoughts on this, so please comment your reflections down below. And if you enjoyed this focused journey into the realities of the past, make sure to subscribe for more untamed history. Thanks so much for learning with us today, and keep questioning the limits of what is possible.